Welcome to Our Two Cents, a podcast about money, real life, and the decisions that shape both. Welcome back to the Our Two Cents podcast, and today we're doing something a little different, putting Lyle in the hot seat. So if you are new here, Lyle was not born and raised in the U.S. He was born and raised in the beautiful Cape Town, South Africa. So that means that immigration is a huge part of our story. Lyle's been here a little over a decade in the U.S., but we thought it would be fun to do a little interview and share a little bit about Lyle's story, what it was like coming over to the U.S., some of the differences he faced, and what that experience was like.
Yeah, we're going to pull the curtain back and we're just going to share what it's like to actually go through the process, because we hear lots of different stories, but we just felt that what we went through might help some people out there.
So let's set the stage a little bit. So you came over to go to school, right? What was your initial expectation coming to the U.S.?
Yeah, my initial expectation was what you see in the movies. And I remember when we just started dating, I always said that it's like in the movies, but I expected everybody to have a big house with the white picket fences.
Like quite literally a white picket fence?
Yeah, because that's what we saw, right? Or alternatively, like the New York sort of vibe. But that's what I expected. I expected everybody to have the latest technology, have big vehicles. And when I got here, I saw something slightly different to that.
And you had been visiting the U.S. for, 10 years before even moving?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, so I'd been coming over to conferences for 10 years, but when you come over as a tourist, it's a totally different experience because you're obviously going to the popular tourist spots and you're just seeing the nice side of things and where everything is polished, and you kind of bind to this narrative that everything's perfect and that everybody has lots of money to be able to do whatever they want.
So you get off the plane. What was one of your first memories once you got off the plane?
My first memory was actually getting Taco Bell.
Was it?
Yeah.
Where did you land?
The first time I came over, I landed in, it was Detroit.
Okay.
But I caught a connecting flight. Actually, before the Taco Bell, I landed in Detroit and I was waiting in the airport. It was a layover and I saw a Hummer. And I was like, oh man, there's a Hummer. Because we didn't have Hummers in South Africa.
And what year was this?
This was 2005 or 6, somewhere around there. And I asked the lady in the store, can I please take a photo with the Hummer? And she thought I was crazy, right? But I got my photo. And then the next memory was just having the Taco Bell because I'd seen it on TV.
So did you have like culture shock, or did you feel like you could adjust easily?
I think initially there was a bit of culture shock once I started from a living perspective, right? Just seeing how different things were from a credit perspective, a banking perspective, and just a culture perspective as well. In South Africa, at least in my culture, we do a lot of things together, whereas in the US culture, it seemed to be a lot more isolated. And what I mean by that is you close with your family, but with friends, you're always going to meet out at different places. Whereas in South Africa, we all come together at somebody's house. So over here, it always felt like I needed to have money to be able to do stuff because we're going to a restaurant again. So every day or every other day, we're going to eat out.
It's a very individualistic culture.
Yes. So not isolated, more individualistic.
Yeah, very different than the familial family culture of South Africa. Okay, so you visited multiple times from 2003 to 2013. And 2013 is when you came over to go to school, right?
Yes.
Okay, I have to do the math.
25 to 2000 and yeah.
So 2013, you come over. You recently quit your job.
Yeah.
Do you come over with cash, or what does your financial situation look like?
So I taught at a university and I had some money, but in order to come to school over here, you needed to have funds to be able to prove that you could provide for yourself when you were here.
Okay.
And so I cashed out my equivalent of my 401k in order to pay for my first year of studies. So I came over with that money, but also you got to remember too, the South African currency, which is called the rand, is totally different to the US dollar. So as an example, today, $1 will get you about 16 or 17 South African currency. So my money might have seemed a lot in South Africa, but when I brought it over here, it wasn't a lot at all.
Okay, so you get to school, and I mean, I know when I was in college, I was working 2 to 3 jobs on the university property, doing a number of different things. I served in the residence hall, but you couldn't do anything.
I wasn't allowed to work
at all.
So
just so you were on a student visa.
Student visa, wasn't allowed to work, and I didn't work, but I was able to participate in a lot of on-campus activities,
Okay.
which is great. But again, with my limited resources, I needed to watch what I was spending my cash on because your money can run out pretty quickly.
Do you feel like you did that? Did you
I,
actually?
I ate a lot of $1 McDonald's meals. Yep. And I trusted God too, right? For food and for a whole bunch of stuff. It was an interesting season, a season of development. I think what it taught me was back in South Africa, I had a lot.
Hmm.
And I was happy, but I came over here and I didn't have a lot, but I realized that my true happiness isn't found in the things. I was doing something that I knew on the inside of me that I needed to do. So there was an enjoyment and a peace with it. And yes, I might not have had a vehicle. In fact, I remember one day walking from school, right, to the place that I was going to live at or that I was living at. And that was in August, September in Oklahoma, and the temperature's like 100 degrees.
Hmm.
And I needed to do that. I didn't have a car at all. And
Right.
that was foreign to me because since I started working, I always
You
had
had
a
a
car.
car. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, South Africa's not quite, I mean, the walking culture. I don't know that Oklahoma would be either. Things are pretty spread apart
yeah,
in both areas. But so you go through school, and did you have like a budget or a spending plan or anything? Or were you?
absolutely not. To be honest, I was just flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah,
I
for two
was
years.
for 2 years
Hmm.
just going through the motions, and there were times and seasons where I had no money.
Yeah.
Right, I remember the story. I always talk about my Fruit Loops, where that's all that I had. But in the midst of that, people blessed me. People gave me food, and I wasn't asking for it, but they just knew, and I believe it was God just knocking on the arch, just saying, "Hey, help this guy out." But it was a great season.
So, in that adjustment, now that you're living here full time versus having visited,
Yeah.
was there anything from a financial perspective that shocked you or anything that confused you about the US system that
Yeah.
took you a little while to get used
You're
to?
talking about in the student days or once?
Yeah, once you were living here in the student
In the
days.
student days, I think just the culture of credit, because even back then, like a lot of the kids at school, students at school, if any of you are watching, my friends, right? I was like 12 years older than most of them. A lot of them had credit cards at a young age.
Mm.
And so they're buying things on credit and also the independence, because I was 30 years old and in South Africa, I was still living at home.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, I'm living in a house with 3 other guys and I have to be responsible. I have to buy food and I have to do all those things. And so that was a different side of things for me because I didn't have to do that before. And even
Yeah.
with the food, right? I remember buying frozen chicken and meat and I put it in the freezer. And then I would see, oh, it's past the best by date, not realizing that if you freeze it, you can actually still go and thaw it and then eat it.
Hmm.
But I threw away lots of food.
I wonder how much money was in the trash worth
We're
of
not going to talk about that.
just me.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward a little bit. You finish your schooling, we meet.
Yeah.
What was your thought process as we were dating as it regards to finances? Because at that time, you obviously still weren't working
Yes.
either.
So I still wasn't allowed to work, and I liked you, and I still do, but I felt that I needed to provide and to be able to show you that I can take you out and I can do things. And I had this little thing called an Investec card, which is a South African bank. And in South Africa, it wasn't necessarily a credit card, but you have a huge overdraft facility.
So it functions
It
like
functions like a
credit
credit card, but it's not exactly, but it is. It's just different,
Do you pay?
right?
And so if you like roll over in your overdraft from statement to statement, do you pay any
You pay interest.
You do pay interest.
You do
Okay, so
you
it's
do.
like a credit
So
card.
similar,
Okay.
yeah. And so I used that, and I remember taking you out to Trulux one day because I'd
Mhm.
heard that's your favorite restaurant. Little
I
did I
promise
know.
I'm not that bougie. Okay,
Yeah.
like I had just been to a Trulux and I really liked one of their fish dishes. Okay.
And so we roll up to Trulux that day, and I was like, oh man, I'd never seen a menu before where the cheapest thing is like $60. And so I'm like, yeah, order whatever you want. And I'm like, oh man,
$200 later.
225
Okay, you still remember.
before the tip.
I wonder
So,
what that'd be today.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so just things like that, like just wanting to do stuff for you. And in fact, even like with my wanting to propose to you, I wasn't allowed to work again,
Mhm.
and I needed money for a ring. And thank you, Investec.
Mhm.
So I was able to purchase a ring after months of looking because I knew that you were the one, and that I wanted to buy something decent. And even though it was the best that I could do, I would have liked to have done more than that. But even if I believe, even if it wasn't as nice of a ring as what you have now, you still would have said yes.
Yes, I still would have said yes.
Wonderful.
So, was there a moment where it really clicked to you that like your own personal thought process around finances was going to have to change as we moved towards engagement and marriage?
Not while we were dating, and even not while we were engaged, but even during the engagement, I guess I just felt like I wanted to contribute a lot more.
Okay.
And just the culture, even around weddings and just how much weddings cost over here, it is
Wild.
wild. Like, it just costs such a lot of money, and all the things that you do that go as a part of it, you can easily spend back then like 20, $30,000 or more, depending on how you want the wedding to be. And I'd never seen weddings cost that much before.
Mm.
And then even the rehearsal dinner, like we didn't do that. And I'm like, I don't have the money to pay for the rehearsal dinner, because over here in the States, the bride's family pays for the wedding, and normally the groom's family pays for the
Traditionally pays
right?
for the, yeah. I mean,
But
there's many cases where that's not the
but you
case. But
factor in, working and all those sort of things, it just wasn't possible. But it worked out, right? So in that season, I just felt that I wanted to provide you with more, but I couldn't. And I remember you even giving me a credit card. Do
oh,
you
yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
I used to come and visit you by
By
train,
train.
and
Yeah.
I used your credit card to buy
The
me
train
train tickets
tickets.
to come and visit you. So that was just
Uh,
such an interesting season and
Good
time
times.
that you looked after me.
So back in South Africa, is it common, or did you know many relationships where the woman was the breadwinner or the sole provider? Do you
Not
see
that
that?
not that many.
Okay.
I think probably more now, as there are more people that are studying. Not that they weren't back then, but more people are studying and becoming professionals. That there might be instances where the lady does make more money than the guy. But back then, guys worked. Ladies, in some instances, it was more of the traditional sort of marriage setup where the lady was at home. In my
Mm-hmm.
house, although my mom worked, my sisters both work, but there
Mm-hmm.
were certain like friend groups that I had where the wife stayed at home
Okay.
and the husband provided for the family.
Okay. So socially, emotionally, was that hard for you to wrap your mind around in a season where you couldn't provide?
So both my parents actually work. So actually, what I'm thinking about is my grandparents, where my grandpas worked, and they actually went out and they worked very hard and they brought money back to my grandma. So that was kind of my perception, that the guys got to provide, right? But fortunately, in our relationship, I quickly had to remind myself that you are not about that, that you're not feeling, oh, I'm working and you're doing nothing. In that season where I was not able to work, I did things around the house. And I think that's where I kind of convinced myself that I am bringing value to the relationship. I think that was important for me, because if I didn't do anything and I just sat to my phone all day, I probably would have felt guilty.
And,
But I did what I could do.
and Benson became your therapy dog.
It did. I wasn't a big dog person before that,
I
but
came as a package, wife and dog.
wife and dog. And
Uh-huh.
early in the relationship, I was a bit jealous. I was like, you like your dog more than me. But it wasn't true, right? But we thank the Lord for Benson, because if it
Benson,
wasn't for Benson,
R.I.P.
we wouldn't have met, because you
Yeah.
probably would have been sleeping because you like to sleep.
Yeah. Benson was the one that woke me up, that eventually I answered the text message you sent at
did.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so now we're married, and was there a moment that it clicked that finances had to change, or did you come to like a personal realization, or was it just through daily conversations between us, that like we have to figure this out even on one income?
I think not initially, because at first you were the one taking care of all the finances. So I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest. I just knew that we were able to go to Target and we were able to go to Walmart. And
Things haven't changed much. No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
and we're able to do all those things. But as things proceed, as time passed by, and when I actually started to work, and I had my paycheck and we started to discuss finances a lot more, I quickly realized where we were in terms of our debt and things like that. And I think that's a very important point. Like, I don't think we really discussed finances before our marriage, right? But I think
Yeah,
our
I would have done that
situation
differently. Well, our situation was different. Yeah.
our situation is different. But I think if let's say we were both from here, I think it's important that if you are considering marrying somebody, is to have a discussion, because you need to
You don't want to be
understand.
blindsided.
Yeah, their spending habits or their debt, right? Because over here in the States, like just the cost of education, again, you can
Right.
get married to someone that can have 200 grand's worth of debt.
Right.
Knowing that might affect what you can and can't do in the first couple of years or several years of your marriage.
So, out of all the differences that you noticed, what were some of the positive things that you gained knowledge wise moving to the US?
I think from a financial perspective, even though I am an accountant, is just how much more personal finance resources there are that's available. And that actually piqued my interest in wanting to learn how to manage finances. Also, just the opportunities to be able to invest seems a lot easier over here. Just the opportunities with regards to different savings vehicles that they have, that really piqued my interest, and it really took me down this trail of just studying and learning about it and things that we could implement. Something else that was also interesting to me was just how the credit system worked in the US
yeah.
compared to South Africa. Over here, there's a lot more information available, but they consider a lot more things. Like in South Africa, I never checked my credit score one time.
If that's the thing, there's a credit score in South
There
Africa.
is a credit score.
Okay.
And that actually, when you go and you borrow money for a house or for a car, there's something called prime, which is the rate set by the government. But depending on
Like your interest rate.
your interest rate,
Okay.
right? But depending on your credit status or how risky of a borrower you're going to be, you can either get prime, which would be like the baseline, which I think at the time when I lived there was like 10% or something like that. It's been such a long time. But I would qualify for prime -2 because of the bank that I worked, that actually I banked with. But because of my professional degree and because of my vocation, I was able to get a better interest rate. But I believe they probably considered my credit score, but the thought never crossed my mind.
Yeah, that
at
was
the
a
time.
whole nother situation trying to buy a house,
A house.
together and like just working through all the differences. I mean, even today, there are things that come up that it's like, oh, I didn't realize this is how it works over here.
Yeah, and then also just credit, how easy you can get onto credit.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because what I've learned over years, like we buy stuff and we pay it off, but we get points and things like that, which they don't really have the same model in South Africa. Another thing which was different to me was the fact that in the States, they still use checks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to write out a check.
You don't know how to write like the full.
I always have to refer to the previous check to make sure that I do it right, because we don't have it. Checks, I think, actually went out in South Africa as an ancient way of doing banking.
Ancient.
Yeah. I think in the 90s or early 2000s. So in South Africa, even though I worked for lots of years, I didn't have a checkbook because there wasn't checks.
That's funny. So going through this whole experience, what is one of the biggest lessons you learned?
One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that this is truly a land of opportunity. And so I see for myself, and I see lots of people that were born here, and even those that immigrated to this country with the right work ethic. You're going to work hard, and if you continue to develop yourself either through education or solving complex problems, you can succeed. There's so many opportunities from an entrepreneurial perspective, and even if you're just going to be working someplace, there's just so many opportunities compared to other countries. So you always hear of the American dream, and sometimes people say, yeah, it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is dead. I just think it's just changed slightly. You can come from nothing and you can become very successful over here, just with the right systems in place and just learning how the fundamentals of finance works in this country.
Is there anything you would change in your story? Anything you would have done differently?
In my story, I think what I would have done differently was when I started working over here was to start saving in my 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Because even then, like, things were a bit tight for us financially, and we deferred that until my second job, I believe. I probably would have started earlier, but then also putting in a lot more, because at one point in time, I was putting in 1%, which doesn't really move the needle. It's better than nothing,
Better
right?
than nothing.
Better than nothing. But I feel that we could possibly have done more. I would have done more earlier on.
So to wrap up the our 2 cents question of the day, since we are talking about all things U.S., I'm going to do a little question and answer quick fire. Okay,
Yeah.
You ready?
Go for it.
Dr. Pepper or Coke?
Dr. Pepper,
Pizza Hut or Domino's?
Pizza Hut,
Hot dogs or hamburgers?
hamburgers,
Bluebell ice cream or Dairy Queen?
Bluebell all day. I'm Texan now, y'all.
Whataburger or Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A.
Walmart or Target?
Whew. Walmart all day.
Wrong answer.
Walmart all day.
Well, we'll catch you next time on the Our 2 Cents podcast.